He is primarily one of our illustration faculty at Montserrat. He's been here for quite some time now, and he's reporting live from his home, not close to campus, but he is geared up to give a really great demonstration on some illustration work. And Shanth, I hope you don't mind, but we want to record this section of the program. So no pressure, but you are a rock star, and we need to make sure that we document this for maybe
oh my goodness, no pressure indeed.
awards or something in the future. So anyway, Shanth, take it away. We're excited to have you back.
Oh, well, thank you guys for having me here, and good morning, everybody. I appreciate all of you giving me the opportunity to be here today and talk with you about Montserrat. As Jeffrey's been saying, I've taught for 17 years. I've been teaching college for 17 years, and I am really regretting I did the gallery view for this because I can see how many people are watching me right now. So I'm feeling that. I'm like, oh my goodness. But let's see, I've been teaching for 17 years. I've worked as an illustrator, and I've taught at 3 different schools. And during that time, as an artist, I've learned a few things that I think it's really important to pass along to young artists coming up. So just a little bit of background about myself. I was born in Houston, Texas. I let's see, I've been drawing for as long as I can remember. I have been married to my wife, who also got her BFA in illustration we celebrated our 20th wedding anniversary this year. And I have twin 15-year-olds. So all of this is eerily looking at my future when I'm going to be looking at colleges myself in a couple of years with my two 15-year-olds. So one of my favorite things about illustration and Montserrat, and one of the things that makes me so passionate about what I get to do, which is to pass on the knowledge, is first and foremost, anybody who is dedicated to the discipline of being an artist and being an illustrator is a part of a unique group of people. And actually, I want to test something really quickly too, by the way. I want to see if I can get this to work. Okay, there's a dashboard. Let's see how this works. Let's see if this works so you guys can see. Oh my goodness. Let's see here. Okay, let's see if I'm sharing here. 1 second here. Now, can you guys see anything on your screen? Can you see any artwork? All right, terrific. There we go. Awesome. So I thought it might be useful to have my desk available for when I'm showing you guys some things. So one of the things I love about teaching is passing on this knowledge that I feel very fortunate to have gained during my time studying, which has been the majority of my life. And for me, the big question a lot of parents will ask me about, and a lot of students will ask me about when they come in as freshmen or when I meet them at high school level, is they'll ask me this big important question, which is, how do I know if I'm an artist? How do I know if this is what I should be pursuing? And how do I know, like, what is that thing? What is the thing that helps you to understand that you're an artist? And for me, the way I always respond to that is really simple. Are you making art? So if somebody sees you and you're always making artwork and you're always learning about art and you're always dedicated to the discipline, that's how you know if you're an artist. And I think it really simplifies things. I think that sometimes we can get caught up in our own heads and try to think about being an artist as something outside of that simple practice of just getting up every day, going to your desk and trying to improve. And I've been very fortunate in the sense that I've had a lot of people who are mentors and teachers who have helped me to improve as an artist. And the reason why I teach, and the thing I'm passionate about it for, is I feel like my job is, since I can't really pay my mentors back any more than I hopefully already have, is to pay it forward and to share it with the next generation of artists. Because at the end of the day, there is this really beautiful chain of passing on this work to the next generation that we've been doing since the cave paintings 40,000 years ago or so. And so the thing that I kind of like about Montserrat that kind of makes me chuckle and probably shows you a little bit about how I look at the world is that Montserrat is actually an anagram for art mentors. So that was one of the first things I noticed about the word when I saw it. And I think it kind of speaks to my own view in terms of artwork. So the next question that people ask me is, how do I know if I'm an illustrator? how do I know if that's the thing that I'm going to be able to do as an artist, or that's the thing I should be doing? And my rule of thumb with whether or not you're an illustrator or not is really about what your objective is and what you're interested in learning. So an illustrator is somebody who is able to present work for others, to others, receive feedback and improve it, working towards a common goal with the art director. And first and foremost, being an illustrator is about understanding the way that commerce works, which is to say that you understand the value of your work, you gain skills, and then you bring them to the market, and those skills earn you money. And that's one of the more important things. And so for me, when I look at students, those are the big things that have been my experience. So what I always tell people is that I started out, I grew up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which I'm sure you all dream of going to Chattanooga, Tennessee, just as I did. And I didn't even know what New England was. I didn't know anything about this, outside of learning the 50 states. And I came off to art college when I was, let's see, I think I had just turned 18. And I came off to art college in New England, and it was just complete and utter culture shock for me. I was just trying to absorb everything that I was being exposed to. And the interesting thing for me, and why I feel so confident in what I do as a teacher, is because I've had 17 years and then my own career and my own experience, which is longer than that, of helping other people, young artists, improve and attain success in their career. So a couple of things that are amazing to me about what the arts have brought into my life are things I couldn't have ever fathomed. So I've had the opportunity to give lectures on my original theory for character creation and character design at Microsoft Games. I've let's see, gosh, let me think of all the things. I've lectured at Wellesley College. I've lectured at MIT. And for 15 years, I taught at Rhode Island School of Design before I wanted to get back after doing more artwork and more commercial work. And just this past year, I worked as a video game concept artist on a VR game, none of which I was thinking was in my future at, when I was graduating from high school in 1994. Don't tell me when you were born. I don't want to know. I don't want to feel any older than I already do. When it starts with 2000, and I start to go pale a little bit, and I feel it a little bit more. But the thing about it for me is that I could not, my life has gotten so absurd at this point from pursuing and disciplining myself to get better at drawing and refining what I do, that if you had told me what my life was going to be like now, I would not have believed it was possible to get from where I started to here. So the best way I could sort of think to put this is, any of you guys know the show, The Legend of Korra? Do any of you guys know that show? Okay.
Yeah.
So
I've only heard of it.
there you go. Yeah. I haven't seen it. I'm a little worried too. I think my kids have. But so one of my good buddies from college is an artist by the name of Brian Konietzko, and he's the co-creator of Avatar: The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. And so he came to Montserrat to give a talk because he wanted to see where I work, and he also received an honorary degree from Montserrat. And what was so funny to me about it is that he based a character on Legend of Korra off of me. And it's this character called Prince Wu, which is me about 60 pounds ago, I think, or maybe. So I'm the person who ate that character. And the thing about it for me is that if you had told me, like, my kids just think that's normal, that like everyone's dad is an animated character, it's ridiculous. So I've visited Skywalker Ranch. I've been twice, actually. I've been to Pixar, and they went to Pixar when they were 3. I have friends who've directed Pixar shorts. And one of my former students, speaking of the other end of things, one of my former students was one of the leads doing the Google Doodles when they first came on the scene, named Jen Hom. Another one of my students is a guy named Cameron Scott Davis, who just wrote the introduction to my latest art book. And he designed all of the character designs, I believe, for Guitar Hero. So the stuff gets weirder and weirder. Do any of you guys know BioShock Infinite? Do you guys know that game? So there's a lead character in that game, and she's like dressed in period clothing. I don't know what her name is, so I apologize for not knowing that if you're a fan. But one of my former students, Claire Hummel, designed that character. So it's just so strange when I think about all of this stuff, and it all comes from hard work and discipline and figuring out how these things work. And I'm grateful that I've been able to do it with, there's the two people in our household, my wife and I. The only undergraduate degree in this house is a BFA in illustration. So I feel pretty comfortable talking about that. My wife is a high school teacher, and she also does graphic design work. This print that you can see behind me is available on West Elm, and that is one of her paintings that West Elm picked up and sells. So I married pretty well. I don't know how she feels about it. On our 20th anniversary, she had a faraway look and just one tear. Anyway, so the thing about it for me, and the thing about doing this work, is it's opened up doors for me. And it all kind of started with coming off to college, pursuing this stuff, and a really amazing chance encounter with my mentor. My mentor's name is Brian Stelfreeze, and he actually came up to Montserrat last year and gave a talk, and it was just wonderful. Talked about his work. I got the chance to show him around the campus, and the thing about it is that when you have a real art mentor, there's a level of reverence there. And my only job when Brian comes up for a visit is he's not allowed to touch a door handle the entire time he's here. Like, I get every single door. I make sure he has the water he likes. I make sure he has everything he needs, because I cannot possibly pay Brian back for what he's done for me. And one of the things that's kind of fun about that is that I'm actually working on a portrait of Brian, and I'm going to probably redo it because I'm not happy with how it's coming along. But Brian Stelfreeze is, he's worked at DC and Marvel Comics off and on for longer than, gosh, let me say, probably about 30 years. And his most recent big work is he was involved in and was responsible for the redesign of the character of Black Panther. And a lot of his designs got used in that movie. And he did that graphic novel with Ta-Nehisi Coates. And that was kind of one of those amazing things. So I'm working on a portrait of him right now, and this is my portrait of Brian I'm working on in acrylics. And I haven't quite got it right yet because I need him to be making more of a disapproving look as he looks down on me making work. So when I first met Brian, he's still is, but he's such a great mentor because he doesn't give any quarter, and he just sort of came at me really hard about my work. So the first thing he said to me is, he said, "Can I see your work?" And he was down in Atlanta, Georgia, and I grew up in Chattanooga, so I made that commute. He said, "Can I see your work?" And I said, "Sure." And he looked at me and he goes, "So are they teaching any art at art school?" That was just how he does things. He would just come at me straight, and he says, "You don't know perspective." And I'd go, "I don't know perspective." And Brian would say to me, "I can teach you perspective in 3 minutes. Can you learn it in 3 minutes?" And I was like, "I like to think I can. I mean, be great if I could." And that's how he always came at things. And I've got a student right now who's interning with Brian Stelfreeze, and this is the best thing about Brian. Brian will always give it to you straight. And I'm one of those people to where when I'm looking at student work, my objective is to help you figure out what are the things you need to learn and fix them so you can make money, so that you can pay off loans, so that you can have a nice place that you can live in where you're comfortable. And that all comes from my dedication to how much this is costing. And when I say that, some of you might think I'm talking purely about some monetary thing, but that's actually not what I'm talking about. The thing I think about the cost of the most, and that Brian taught me with some kind of awareness of, was the cost of time. Like right now, you guys are giving me the opportunity to spend 30 minutes with you. And I value your time. And I want to make sure I give you the most information I can and the best information I can. And Brian's attitude is, when he was talking to me, is he was testing to see if I could take what it takes to be an illustrator, so that he could give me essentially the gold that is the wisdom of his knowledge that he's gained. And he's fond of this quote that he uses that I love to parrot, which is, "To the average person, knowledge masquerades as talent." And that really is what it is for me, is that this myth of talent I mean, sure, there are people who have talent and have more skill, but if you ask me to bet on a student in terms of where they're going to be 10 years out, I'll always choose the people who work hard over the people who are talented and don't. And that's all the people I was listing before when I was talking about students that I've had. And so Brian kind of would sit down with me and he would introduce me to this stuff. So I was really pleased when he took on one of my students as an intern. And she said to me, I thought I was about to have an emotional moment with Brian the other day. And I was like, oh no, has he gotten soft? Oh, what's happened to him? And she said, he said to me, he goes, you know, you remind me a lot of Shanth. And she goes, really? And he goes, yeah, he was hopeless too. And that just cracks me up. And so, but Brian will get on a plane for me, bless him, and he will talk to students until he is getting back on the plane. And that's my general attitude. I live 90 miles from Montserrat. And so every time I would come in to teach, and every time I do come in to teach, I am going from Rhode Island 90 miles up and then 90 miles back. So it's about 180 miles of commuting in 4 to 5 hours, depending on how it goes. And so that'll really teach you in terms of what you're motivated to do and where your focus is. And so let me talk a little bit about some of the things I do. And my general rules of thumb. It was interesting with you guys talking about tablets before. I couldn't help but hear that. So I actually have a rule of thumb for my students, and it's this. By the time you graduate from Montserrat, people come up to you and they ask you, do you work in digital or traditional? Your answer should be yes. Do you work in digital or traditional? Yes. So I actually do my layouts in Photoshop, and I do my layouts whether they're small in Photoshop or whether they're large in Photoshop. Sometimes I do them in traditional, but it's rare. And for all of these layout pages that you're seeing right here of my work, I do all of them with a trackpad. So it's not the technology at all. The technology is important, let me be clear, but the technology isn't everything. You have to make sure you understand color, value, hue, perspective, all of these things that are the most important aspect of our work. So let me show you a couple of things I do work-wise, and then I'm going to teach you guys perspective in a couple of minutes. So fingers crossed, we'll see how that goes. So let's see here. So I already showed you the Brian Stelfreeze painting. That's an example of an exercise that I do. This is another exercise I found the other day. This is an exercise I did in acrylic, which I don't typically work in, of painting a hand. And these are all things that I do to kind of test myself. Another thing I did just to kind of improve my knowledge base is I did a master copy of a Da Vinci painting, or a painting that is currently being attributed to Da Vinci. So I worked upside down on it so I could crosshatch like a left-hander, because Da Vinci was a left-hander. Like a lot of my favorite artists, I'm a right-hander. And I did this in acrylic, and you can actually see that I was also using a gel pen on this. So for any of you guys wondering what you can do with a gel pen, this is a fun way to work if you want to work with a gel pen. So let's see if I can get that to focus. There we go. And I find Da Vinci's work really interesting in terms of study and in terms of what I like to do. And let's see what else I've got here. I also wanted a painting for my office of a historical figure, T.E. Lawrence. And so I couldn't find a really good one. So this is a painting I did of T.E. Lawrence shortly after I was hired full-time at Montserrat 5 years ago. And so this is what that looks like. And what I've generally found is that if you can paint and draw really accurately and well, you will never be out of work. I dare anybody to try to be out of work if you have a high level of skill. It's the way it is. And what you're gaining as you work and as you push yourself as an artist is that ability to do almost anything when you're called upon to do it. So let me give you an example of how I was taught and how to use whatever time you have to help people to learn. So a couple of things. For if any parents who are around or not around, feel free to ask any adult in the room. College seems like 5 minutes when you look back on it, the longer you've been out. And I've been out of college for a long time. So the way I feel about college is it's like I've got a bunch of young artists or I'm trying to prepare to go out into the world, and they're driving past me in a car going 60 miles per hour, and I have to shout to them through the window as they drive past as fast as I can. So that means that because I value the time you're investing, I've spent a considerable amount of my time learning how to teach as effectively as I can. So how many of you guys are fuzzy on perspective or are not comfortable with perspective? How many have we got? Yeah, probably everybody's hand should be up because most people are. But even if you think you're not, you're going to learn something about perspective, hopefully. So let's talk about perspective, and let's talk about how it works. So perspective. See where if I've got a decent pen here or pencil. So here's the problem that most people have with perspective. When I ask most people, so what's perspective about? They're like, well, there's this line that's out there somewhere in the horizon. Then there's a ruler. And there's a lot of like crying and screaming. And, you know, it's usually what I get from people when they talk about perspective, right? So here's the funny thing. The secret to perspective is in the word perspective, which is to say, what is your perspective? Perspective isn't theoretical. Perspective is a measurement. Perspective and the horizon line is, first of all, perspective is where are your eyes located in space? And then the next part of it is, how high are your eyes? When they say where, they mean how high are they off the ground? And that's what that line is. Some people call it a horizon line. Some people call it an eye line. I like to call it an eye height because that's how I was taught by Brian Stelfreeze. So here you go. We're going to create a fantasy world where everybody is 6 feet tall. Now, I'm not 6 feet tall, but it's an easy measurement for what I got to do for today. So here we go for demonstration purposes. Let me see where my, oh, all right. Let me move this a little bit so I can, it's easier for me to see. I'm going to draw a box that represents what the screen is picking up. So there we go. All right. So we're going to talk about how that stuff works. So if I've got a perspective scenario and I've got 6 feet tall people in it, and that line that we put into the perspective has an eye height of 3 feet, and I've got nothing but 6 feet tall people in this perspective, what's going to happen on that line? Anybody care to venture a guess? What's going to happen with 6 feet tall people in this? Where's that line going to be? Everybody's like, I knew it would involve crying. Go ahead.
The numbers are confusing. I think the numbers are what's confusing, at least for me.
Okay. So if you've got a 6 foot tall person or a lot of 6 feet tall people in a 3 foot eye height, that means that line is going to intersect with all the 6 foot tall people. Oh my goodness. Halfway. So here we go. That line is going to go right through the middle of all of those figures. And when it does, you will have them in perfect perspective. That's all that line means, that it runs into the 3 foot marker on anything that it comes in contact with. In the case of 6 feet tall people, it's going to be right through the middle. So people go, wait, what about the point, the ruler, and the crying and the screaming? I just did that completely randomly. Let me put a point anywhere on this line, and I'm going to draw lines off of it. And everybody will look like they're in perfect perspective, even though I did it randomly. So let's see what else we can do with this. And I'm going to move this camera back a little closer to my face. So that's always terrifying, but here we go. So let's see. Now we're going to do a 6 foot tall eye height. What's going to happen now?
All of the figures, their eyes are, at the top of their head is going to meet that line.
You got it. That one's always fun to do. And let's see here. And then if I want to put a dot on that line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all in perfect perspective. So then we've got one of my other favorites. Let's do 0 feet. What's going to happen at 0 feet?
Everybody's feet are going to be touching the line.
You got it. This is my favorite one to do. I promise I draw better than this normally. So here we go. I'll put another figure back there. Then I put a dot on that line anywhere. And everybody is going to be in perfect perspective. So now we're going to go with my favorite one, because this is the most brutal. I remember when Brian showed this to me, my mind was blown. 12 feet. What do you do when it's 12 feet?
Halfway.
Fire away. Sorry, go ahead.
They're like halfway.
Good. What else? Colby, I think I saw your hand up. What have you got for me?
I think that the heads would be below the line.
Now, how do we measure that? Here's the trick. Go down any arbitrary measurement and then draw your figure that same measurement, because we know that 2 6 feet tall people will make it to that line. So again, and
this looks amazing. Like,
thank you. I appreciate that.
It's a good trick, right?
Yeah, that's an incredible trick. Now, I have a question now. I don't know if this will throw you off, but what do you do if the heights aren't standardized?
Well, it's simple. If I want to put a 3 foot tall person in here, I'll go down a distance, and then I'll go down another distance, and I'll make that person halfway. 3, 3, 3, 3. If I want to do 5 feet, then I can just break that up. I could do anything I want to do with it. If I want to put a 5 foot tall person in here, I go down. Let's say I want to put a 5 foot tall person somewhere back in here. I'll go down a distance, go down another distance, and then I'll figure, 5 foot tall person is going to be a little shorter than that, and put them there. And then I take a dot, put it on that line, because this is the big test. This is why I love Brian Stelfreeze. This is why we all love our mentors who teach us, our college teachers. And the thing I need you guys to think about who are watching this is if I can teach you perspective and help you understand perspective in a couple of minutes, what can I do with 4 years? Something to think about. So I have a pretty good track record of teaching people who don't understand color how to paint in color. The reason is because I was dreadful at painting color. And Brian Stelfreeze stayed with me and made sure I could get it. He said, all right, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. And my attitude is, if I can teach myself color, I can teach anybody color. And like I say, I mean, when I'm working on a job, like one of my first jobs out of college was working on the Harry Potter trading card game, doing concept art for Hasbro. I've had all these really amazing experiences that art has given me. And certainly with art college, it certainly gave me my wife and in that sense, my kids. But the thing I think is important for people to understand is that I would have a lot more, probably a lot more mercy on my students if I hadn't worked so hard and struggled so hard to get good. But I know it comes down to hard work. And I believe with utter certainty in that every single student I see is capable, if they put the work and the time in, of being successful, because I feel like I've been a very unlikely story in terms of being able to get from a small sort of town in Chattanooga, Tennessee, all the way off to giving lectures and doing concept art for gaming companies. It's kind of a miracle to me. And so one of the big things I've been doing lately that has kind of been the continuation of all of this is I've been producing my own art books and crowdfunding them. They've been doing pretty well. So this is just a quick flip through of the kind of stuff I do when I'm doing my own work. And it's a lot of fantasy and science fiction and all sorts of stuff. That's my daughter right in there. Got to paint your kids in these things every now and again. There's my son, is right in there. And yeah, a lot of this work is predicated on the skill set and the skills that I pick up as an artist. And right now I'm in the process of proofing my second art book, and they're going to send me a second proof soon, but this is the stuff that I do. And it's a real blast to be able to put together the stuff that you're interested in and make characters and create worlds with your artwork. And as I think some of you guys probably saw when I started out, I also do comic book and manga work. I do pretty much, you know, anything that that I have the desire to pursue. And for me, I guess this is my general rule of thumb when it comes to learning that I guess I'll leave before you guys, you know, can ask me questions or anything else. Is one of my heroes is an actor by the name of Denzel Washington. And he has this quote that I tell myself every morning when I wake up. Actually, I have a painting of Denzel Washington in my house that I did, a portrait I did. But he has this quote that I rather like, which is, ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. And so that's one of my big rules of thumb, which is if you have the dedication, you have the discipline, you can get anywhere with your work. You can put the stuff together and you can improve. And I use the Anders Ericsson model, which is you give people clear goals, you tell them what you need from them, you give them immediate feedback, and then they have a breakthrough over time. And there's some frustration before you have that breakthrough. But once you get into that rhythm of breakthrough, 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 in 4 years, you can improve your skills beyond, exponentially beyond what you could do on your own in 4 years. And that's really the goal. And that's really what we're about. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me questions. And thank you again for taking the time, this valuable time out of your day, 30 minutes and giving it to me to use. I hope you know I appreciate it. And I'm grateful for having this time with you. Regardless, I hope you've learned perspective. Okay, fire away if you have questions.
Do you have any tips for like warped perspective, like fisheye, that kind of thing?
Oh my goodness. That I don't know if I can do in 5 minutes. But the biggest trick I always use for warped perspective is because it's tough. I have a friend, another teacher I had who was actually taught by Brian Stelfrey. He's named Cully Hamner, and he does some incredible stuff with fisheye warped perspective. The trick for me always is that there's a mathematical part of it, that if you get too mathematical with it, it looks a little bit off. So my general rule of thumb is I study fisheye lens perspective, and that's how I've kind of created my way of approaching it. Because all the multiple vanishing points, once you get beyond like 3 points, those arcs start to get a little bit arbitrary. So it depends. I'll tell you what I would probably do today is I would probably do it two-dimensionally, do a work 2D, and then bring it into Photoshop. And then warp the perspective in Photoshop. So I use every tool that I have at my disposal in order to get it done. But that's a really good question. Great. Any other questions? Fire away. I should also say, go ahead.
That specific piece that you had, like in view, if you could bring that back in.
Oh, that one right there. Sorry, right as I move it,
Yeah.
right?
You raise joy away. No, first of all, that's like incredible work. Like the stuff that you've been showing.
Thank you.
Mind blowing. Like, how did you sell your soul for such talent? But like specifically about that type of hatchwork, because I love using hatchwork. Is that like a combination of like different pens, like using like a white gel pen and a black gel pen? Because I really like how you have like lighter hatchwork in there as well as the normal dark stuff.
Sure, I use a brush and ink on this stuff, and then I also will use a white gel pen, because one of the things I love about gel pens is it allows me to hatch back over the lines so that I can not only create little white squares, which is what you get when you cross hatch in dark ink, but I can also create little black or gray squares, which starts to feel a little bit more like screen tone from manga, which is something I'm really interested in these days. And so for me, the biggest rule of thumb with this stuff is I've been looking at a Korean artist by the name of Kim Jung-ji that some of you guys might know. And he's incredibly fast, and he doesn't use any pencils when he draws his comic stuff. So everything you see right here outside the panel borders, I don't allow myself to use a pencil. So that's kind of what I'm doing to myself right now to improve. I set these really strict rules, and I do not allow myself to use a pencil when I'm doing this stuff. And I so want to, but I use a gray pen. I use these, and actually usually it's a gray or a black pen so I can get some of these values, but mainly it's just watered down Pelikan Black Magic ink. So it's, I don't know it's Higgins Black Magic, I think is what it's called. But the biggest thing is just knowing how to draw. I mean, it's a huge part of it. And I always say that visual literacy is just like all other forms of literacy. it frees you up so much to understand a language. And the visual language that's been passed down is like this wonderful thing we share with each other. And it allows you to be able to show people what you're seeing in your head. And it's just an incredibly liberating experience. And it's what I'm so grateful to my education for. Any other questions? Hopefully that helps. Jeffrey threw me when he said I'm being recorded. I was like, oh no. But I love that. It's too fun. It's very strange. But yeah, I did not see this coming when I was growing up in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I can tell you. I did not see this future of Star Trek visuals right there. It's unbelievable. So any other questions? Fire away. I'm all yours, guys. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for coming out here, and I can see our beautiful campus. So Jeffrey's got our beautiful campus queued up here. So please enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much, guys, and I hope I gave you a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like when you're in college here. All right, take care, everybody. Hope to see you.